Hey everybody, welcome to the HardCore Fab channel. So in today's video, I am working on this last piece I need here on this back panel for Old Crow. And I thought, you know what, I've done a lot of stuff here on the channel with the bead roller, but we've never took a very close look at it or a deep dive at it. So I think on today's video, that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna get some measurements here. Let's get started. Originally, I was thinking about doing like a Old Crow or a HCF here or something like that in the middle, but with the seats being here, there's not going to be a lot of that showing. So I've kind of changed my mind from that, and I think it'd just be better off to go ahead and put kind of a cool pattern here in the middle. We'll go ahead and keep our diamond tuck stuff going on here, and maybe add in like a cool X or something. I don't know. I need to go over here and just start laying out some stuff, and we'll figure it out as we go. So for my bead roller setup, I've got one of the Mittler Brothers 36-inch Jamie Jordan edition bead rollers. These things are sweet. Now, they're a little bit pricey, and generally I wouldn't want to spend the kind of money that I spent on this because I'm cheap, but I'm really happy that I did spend the money on it because this is actually a very nice unit. Now, I could have probably easily built this thing, but at the time that I bought this, I wasn't able to walk. We'd had a bad car wreck, and I wasn't able to walk for almost a year after that. And I bought this at that time thinking that this would be a perfect opportunity for me to be able to sit down and still be able to do some stuff and learn something new. So that was back in 2015, and this machine, like I said, we bought it then, and I haven't regretted it since. It's been a great machine. I haven't had any problems with it at all since I bought it. So take that for what it's worth. I did go ahead and build a stand for it out of just some scrap tube that I had laying around at the time, and that saved me a little bit of money there, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I was able to accomplish that. And I also chose to make my own table up here on the front. There again, saved a little bit of money, but I didn't like the idea of having square corners sticking out here in the shop. So if you got sitting here, you jam something into the corner or hit your hand on it or whatever. Plus, I was kind of thinking that if it was rounded, it might give it, an opportunity to have metal kind of slide over it a little bit better and everything. I haven't actually used one of their tables, so I don't know if it really is better or not, but overall, I like the idea of it, and it's been pretty functional since I built it. So for the dies now on our setup, to be able to do the pleats and kind of get that puffy, pillowy kind of look to it, we've got a top die on here that is, I believe what they call it, one of the art dies. It's got a real sharp point onto it, and the bottom die is what a lot of people refer to as a skateboard wheel. It's just a rubber or a urethane wheel, if you will, that's down there on the bottom. And it's soft, so it allows the metal to kind of get formed in here with this real sharp piece, and then kind of pushes everything back up, and like I said, gives it that pillowy kind of look. So that's what we've got going on right here, and this is our setup for dies right now. We will have to change these when we go to do the step around the outside, but we're going to start out with these. So like I said, I kind of played that all by ear, and I was kind of setting it up, and you've probably seen me go through there and erase the centerpiece and start all over again. I was originally going to center everything up on the hump, because the hump is actually not centered in the back wall here as it goes through, because the 9-inch sits off to one side and the drive shaft is literally like right inside there. So since it's inside there, I didn't want to intrude into the driver's side any more than I had to give myself as much room over there as I could. So I actually have this little box kind of offset to the center there. So originally I was thinking kind of set everything all up for that, But then after I was thinking about it a little bit, the seats are going to be centered and everything's going to be kind of lined up with those to be able to match the outside of the cab, not this hump. And that means that whatever's happening here is going to be centered with the seats. So I went back and redid that, and now everything's all the way it should be. So I wanted to get a look at it kind of like this before I went ahead and took all the time to get the pleats in there and see if I like it. And I like it. I think it looks good. I think it's going to pop really good having all the extra stuff there in the center in between the seats. So I think that'll be cool. We might be able to get somebody that's not me, that's an actual artist, and be able to come in here and maybe put some sort of pinstripe or something here that says HCF, or it says Old Crow, or maybe Old Crow by HCF or something. I don't know. Something along that lines here in this kind of center circle area is kind of what I'm leaning towards. And that will actually help there as well, have a little bit different color and style and pop going on, and just kind of add the overall theme of the inside of the truck. So I think now I'm ready to go ahead and lay out our lines here for the bead rolling to go in here and do the stuff here that makes it look like the diamond tuck stuff. So get that laid out, and then we can go to the bead roller. Well, I got it all laid out and pretty much ready to go over to the bead roller now. And while I was laying it out, I was trying to decide if there's any tips that I could give you guys about laying stuff out. And really, this stuff is just kind of art at this point, really. I mean, if you have to have something in there for structure, if you have to have something in there for clearance on something, that's different. But on this particular panel, doesn't need to have anything in there for any particular reason. So it's strictly art, and it's just kind of what I feel like looks good. So, and what I'm capable of on top of that, because that definitely comes into play as well. So I just, tried to make everything symmetrical if I can on something like this, where I'm laying out kind of a pattern like this. And even if you can't, like in areas, like this area here where that hump slid over, just kind of go with it. And when you do that, it just kind of makes everything all blend together and seem like it's supposed to be there, because now everything, kind of all flows. So I usually do that. I usually round the corners all off, and I do that with just random stuff laying around the shop that happens to have the right arc in it to be able to complete the look that I'm going for. The circle here in the center earlier, you probably seen me use a little four-wheeler wheel for that. And the red circle in the center, I actually used a set of dividers that I've got a marker taped to. I only use that because then I can use the marker. I do like laying out with markers instead of like pencil or something like that, or pen, because you can see it better. To be able to get the markers off the panel when it's all said and done, I usually just use some carb cleaner. You can also use denatured alcohol. Doesn't work quite as well as carb cleaner. Carb cleaner just makes it run off literally. So usually I use carb cleaner if I've got enough laying around to be able to do that. The material that I'm using today is actually a piece of, I think it's 18 or 20 gauge, somewhere in that neighborhood. It would probably be a lot easier to work with if it was 22 gauge for sure, without a doubt, or if it was aluminum. But I'm using steel because everything else is going to be steel in the truck, and I plan on rubbing paint over the top of all this, and then, or spraying paint over the top of all this and then rubbing it all off, and kind of having this pattern all coming back through and showing. And I'll show you guys that at the end of the video if you want to stick around and see what that looks like, and we'll probably go over some of those techniques real quick as well too. So I've heard people argue that there is a certain sequence that you should do when you're bead rolling stuff like these type of panels. I don't personally feel like there is, but I am going to do this circle here in the center to begin with for one simple fact, and that is that it's a perfect round circle. And you're going to notice that if it's off any at all, it's going to stand out quite well. So I want to do that before I do any of the rest of these beads in here, because it's very likely, since this is a thicker steel panel, that I'll get some warpage in this panel from doing these bead rolls, and that warping might catch here inside the edge of the bead roller here and make it to where it screws up my circle in the center. So I'm going to knock that one out first, then I'm going to go ahead and move over to the pleats. Now I've got it sitting here. I've got the art die on top. I have a step die on the bottom. I went ahead and changed out the rubber wheel for a step die. and I've got it now where it's just kind of barely touching, just where it starts to get a little bit of pressure on there. I'm going to go ahead and probably throw another turn, and I'm going to say like a half in it. So right about there. Now, typically on this kind of stuff, I like to go over it in multiple passes so that you get the least amount of warpage as possible. So I'll do it here at this pressure, then once I get back all the way around, I'll go ahead and throw like another 3/4 or so of a turn in there, and then I'll do that until I get the desired height that I'm going for. All right, a couple things here before we get started. I do have the speed on this thing turned down quite low, and as we get started and it's starting to roll around here, I'm going to go ahead and ramp the tension up a little bit more by giving this another half a turn or so. By introducing that tension in as it's rolling, it helps to not have a start-stop point there that stands out quite a bit. So let's go ahead and get started. So we've made one full pass around, and I like the way it looks so far. I'm going to go ahead and make one more pass, and as I do, I'm going to go ahead and turn this down another half a turn or so. I think that'll give us the desired look that I'm going for. Circle is done, and I like the way that looks. That turned out quite well. I'm very happy with that. Now we need to switch out our dies for the rubber die for the bottom and start on pleats. Alright, so for our pleats, it's going to be pretty much the same process as we did for this little circle. We're going to ramp the tension in as we start to go, and we're going to do multiple passes just like we did on this. I'm going to probably do the whole section here and then come back and then do multiple passes, you know, in sections rather than on each individual line. That'll kind of help with some of the warpage going on there a little bit and everything. And as we go the other direction, that'll help with some of the warpage as well too. The other thing is do not start this die directly on the line that you're going to be doing around this outside edge to put the step in, because the die is actually going to do a little bit of deformation of the metal past on the back side of the die. So you got to kind of just play with that a little bit and see what it works for, how deep it is that you're going to be going with your panel. But for me, for general rule, I kind of usually start somewhere around maybe 3/16 or so, or somewhere in that neighborhood off of that line when I get started doing the bead rolls. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop this thing down and run a few lines here. This is a slow process, so I'll give you guys a little bit of a taste of it here, but then we'll have to go to time lapse and probably just ultimately end up skipping to the end. There's my line. That's the one thing I also forgot to mention over here on the circle is when you get towards the end of the line, you want to do just the opposite. You want to back some of the tension off so that you don't push that line out past where you're wanting it to go. The other thing, I just did a quick count there on how many turns that was, and I usually try to keep track of my turns by counting them so that I don't have to try to set everything up individually. I can just zip it in there. That's 4 turns, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I know that that's in the same spot as the other one was, and then I can do my other half a turn in when I get started. Probably could go ahead and turn the speed up a little bit for these, since they are just straight lines. They're a lot easier to track. One, two, three, 4. One, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Something hanging up there for a second. Cool thing about this is if you do get just a hair or two off of the line, after you erase the line, nobody knows where you were supposed to be. So you don't have to worry about it too much. 3, 4. As long as you don't get too awful crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, I definitely need to speed this thing up just a little bit, or I'm going to be here all day. Well, you guys get a taste for this now. You can kind of see what it takes, and I'll go ahead and go to time lapse and speed this thing up a little bit, and we'll go from there. That section right there is done. I've got 2 passes on that, and now we've got it at about the same depth that Connor did when he did those other panels over there. So this should match out pretty good. And this particular section right here is now at the point where it's ready to have a step around it. Generally speaking, I usually like to try to do as much as I can with the dies that are in the machine and not have to change them out a whole bunch. But since this has got so much going on, I think what I might try to go ahead and do is do this section here, and then go ahead and step this one and this one to kind of help take care of some of the little bit of warpage and stuff we've got going on. Now, if you guys get the panel and you've got some warpage like this in it, it is perfectly normal. It happens, you know, pretty much on every panel, and once you start putting some of the other stuff in it, it helps alleviate a lot of it. And if you see that your panel is getting really curled and really, you know, jacked up, then you might go ahead and consider doing it in more passes. If you've only done it in one, you need to go down to 2 passes. Or if you've done it in 2 and it's still being all cattywampus and crazy, you might want to step it down to 3 passes. So that's just kind of depends on what it is that you're doing there. I've also played around with doing some stretching in the English wheel beforehand, and although I've seen some benefits of that, maybe mostly on aluminum panels, I don't personally feel like it's worth the time and trouble to do it on steel panels, especially thicker steel panels like this, because they just kind of get warped no matter what you do. So that's my personal take on it. You can tell me different in the comments below if you want to or whatever, but that's what I've found throughout the years works for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and probably go ahead and do these pleats in here on this section, like I said, and then go ahead and step these, and then I guess I'll come back over here and show you what that looks like after that. Sweet. Now that I've got that all cleaned up, you can't even tell where I screwed up, because I didn't, right? That's the way that works. You never screw up. So yeah, now that the step is in here around this, that helped flatten that out quite a bit. We've got this side's pretty well down. That'll be a little bit better over here in a second when we get that one rolled out the rest of the way. Now this corner is down on the table pretty much. This one I can't get my finger under. And right here in the middle, I get my finger under there, and that's about, so it's about 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch or whatever of a gap right there. But this side, this whole side here will get riveted to that one support that's in the back of the cab. So even if I don't try to straighten that out, it'll fix itself when it goes time to get riveted in there. I could probably sit here and work it a little bit and get it to where it's in a little bit better shape. A little better. I can spend a little bit more time with it, and I probably will before it comes time to actually go in there and actually stick it in. But yeah, so let me show you those rollers, and then I'll go ahead and bead roll some more of this stuff, and then when it comes time to put the step in around one of these panels over here, I'll get you some video of that too. Alright, this panel is done other than this last step around this panel. I've got, I'm gonna say probably close to 4 hours in this thing so far, just a heads up on how long some of this stuff takes. Now, this step is not much different than the lines here that we were doing earlier. I am going to kind of ramp up the tension on it. Side's going to be a little bit of a pain. I actually had Julie help me do this other side over here because it hangs out there so far, and when it comes time to go around the corners, it's kind of a pain in the rear, but I'll manage. We'll see how it goes here. So we got there where it just touches. Now I'm going to put another turn and a half, kind of like we did on the others, into there. I'm going to start rolling it. It's not really doing much at the moment with just that. I think another half a turn, it'll actually start to give it a little bit of depth to it. So I'll start rolling. Give my turn in. Double check here. Yep, that's looking good. It's 1,000 degrees outside. I'm trying not to die. I got the fans off so that you guys can hear me talk, but I got the doors open. You probably hear crap in the background, so apologize for that. But I didn't mention it earlier, but the foot pedal is actually got an adjustability in it as well as far as speed control. So I've still got my speed turned up from doing all the lines, but I can go real slow and precise around these corners by just barely tapping the pedal. Get away enough to where I can swing it around. Almost made it. And this is definitely the hardest part, trying to get around these curves on the corner here. The worst part is trying to actually match it the second time on the second go around. I wish I could be more entertaining and talk while I do this, but with my little mind, it takes everything I got just to concentrate on this and not screw it up. This one's got that complex kind of curve thing going on there where we have a circle that we're meeting with two other circles. And then we transition out into a straight line right there. This curve is going to be the hard one because now everything's over there. I'm probably going to have to switch the pedal on that side and go over there. Not ideal because then I don't have a very good line of sight on the wheel. My lift is in the way here, which you guys are also on, but I think it's where I'm at. That's what I'm going to have to do. If I'm blocking the camera, I apologize. I'm gonna have to move the camera. Move my pedal over here too. Oh, I'm wrapped up. Now I'm going to be blocking you guys here. That's the kind of stuff with making these videos, it makes all this stuff take way longer than it should. And I'm on the lift and the pedal's down there now, and complain, right? on. Come on. Where's the start? Lord. Move you guys again, sorry. You know what? I'm going to leave all this craziness in the video, and I'm going to ask you guys a question. When you're watching videos like this, is it helpful to see the real deal, like all of that right there? I had to move the camera 27 times to be able to get everything right. Or you want the nice clean version where I edit all of that stuff out? Typically I try to edit all that stuff out because it happens all the time, but maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should be leaving all that stuff in there for everyone to see. Let me know what you think. Comments below. It'd be helpful for me to know that for future videos. So we've now went back to where we started, and we went past the point that I started at, so now everything's kind of connected, and I want to go ahead and do one more pass there with another turn. Irritating. I'm going to do another turn on there, and we'll get it all the way down to full depth. I'll go ahead and just go time lapse since we have a train and a lawnmower, and this takes forever. So. So that's pretty much all the bead rolling on this panel. Now I do have a little bit of warpage over here on the side that I want to address real quick, and I want to show you guys kind of one of the ways that I've found to kind of be able to take care of some of that. So you can see right now I can get all my finger all the way up to my last knuckle underneath there right now. So we've got over an inch that it's actually off right there, which is quite a bit. But we can fix that. I'm going to take just some random stuff that I've got laying around the shop, some scrap metal. This is a drop off of my plasma table. It happens to be pretty close to the same size, at least the closest I could find over there to fitting in this whole corner over here. So that down there, I've got a piece of 3/16 that I broke that I didn't end up using on another project a while back. Get that to go right up beside where our bead roll is. that's got this piece held down pretty flat at this point right there. Now, I've got just a rubber dead blow right here that I'm gonna work this right here just a little bit. It'll actually take a little bit of the stress that's in here that's kind of pulling everything all together out here on the end, and it'll alleviate a little bit of that, and then it'll also kind of push some of our pattern out a little bit and make it look a little fluffier. I'm not gonna like bang the shit out of it, but just kind of push it in a little bit, like I said, and just kind of relieve some of the stress off of it. Should note a couple of things. I'm not swinging the hell out of it, like I said before. And also, my table here, I made sure that there wasn't any little nubs from welding anything or any dirt or debris on this table, because anytime you're doing this like that on here, it's going to transfer anything that you got on the table right into your panel, and that's obviously not good. So let's look at it and see how much that changed it. That's obviously not going to take care of the whole situation, for sure, 100%. But it should be a little better. Oh, there was a little bit of stuff going on over here too. On this one right through here, there's a little wave right there going on. Now we'll look at it. Like I said, once again, guaranteed that we did not fix the whole thing. But my hope is just to kind of smooth it out a little bit by doing that. Flip it over where you guys can see it. Now our corners are pretty well down. I can get to like the second knuckle now. I can't get to all. I can get to the first knuckle, not the second, I guess is what I should say. So we went about half the way that we needed to go just by doing that. Now I'm going to clamp it one more time, and I'm going to line that bead up, or this step up right here along the edge of the table. Can't talk all of a sudden. I also cleaned up my pieces of scrap metal too. You can see that it's all nice and clean and shiny. Now I've got some of these kind of duckbill pliers. I'm just going to take them and pull this up a little bit right here and just kind of slowly, gently walk my way down it and just kind of working it up and kind of putting it back in place. I'm going to call that good. Now, once again, this still isn't going to be 100% perfect. It's going to be a lot better than it was, but it's not going to be 100% perfect, and I know that. But there's going to be a brace right behind there that this piece is going to get riveted to. So I'm really not that worried about it. There you guys go. I can't get the end of my finger under there. I think we're now at the point where I think we're ready to go ahead and get this thing in the truck. Well, there you guys go. It's officially in there. I think it looks pretty badass. I'm digging it. So if this was aluminum and I wanted that look, we could officially be done at this point. But I figured with having black interior and so much black paint already in it, that it would look pretty sweet if I went ahead and took some of this Duplicolor black and put over the thing a little bit. Went ahead and then sanded some of it off, got rid of some of it, gave it that weathered old school look, and then put some clear over it and call her done after that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this window taped off here and get to work on that. Well, if you think this turned out badass, you ought to check out the rest of this build. I'll go ahead and get you guys a link to that playlist right up in this area right here. And I'll go ahead and give you guys a link to one of our other badass builds that we've had going on here in the past, right down this area. But I need to get back to work. I'm gonna get these kick panels installed. So if you want to see what that looks like, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And with that, that's all I got for you guys in today's video. See you next time.